Hi all, this is Liam Feldman. Do you believe we should choose when we die? Cornell states that medical assistance in death, or physician assisted suicide, is to cause death to someone suffering from a painful, life threatening terminal disease. It is putting someone out of their misery and allowing them to die a death with dignity. Patients are given large doses of pain killing medication by a licensed medical professional. It's illegal in most of the world and legal in 6 countries, and another two partially, which are America and Australia. That being said, it's never legal if the person involuntarily consents. They have to consent. MAiD is a divisive topic on how it differs from hospice care, its history, and the central ideas of the people who support it and are against it. To begin, death and dying are never easy. We lose a lot of ourselves in the process of dying. We fear that we may become burdens. We are in a lot of pain. We lose a lot of functions. We lose a lot of ourselves in the process of dying. But when we're talking about death and dying and medical assistance in death, we should probably talk about palliative care first, or hospice care. Hospice care is when the nurse will come into the hospital or the home, and they give pointers. They're talking to the family. They're talking to the patient. They're giving medication to the patient so they're not in pain, and they're allowing them to be comfortable while they're dying. Medical assistance in death is a patient partakes in the process. Is they kill themselves with medication, or the doctor helps them do that. But these two processes can overlap. Like, you can be in hospice and get a medical assistance in death. Historically, medical assistance in death has not been as available as hospice has. The first state was Oregon in 1997 that allowed it, and only 1/6 of the whole entire United States population can actually go out and get a medical assistance in death. And you have to really, really fight for it to get it. It may be a new idea in a sense of legal terms, but ever since the Greek times in 399, when Socrates was killed by his jail guard who gave him poison, this has been going on. The Hippocratic Oath had a line that said, "I will not give a drug that is deadly to anyone if asked for it." And this is saying that, I'm not going to do a medical assistance in death. But, the doctors were doing it anyway because they wanted to euthanize people. Euthanasia differs from medical assistance in death in the aspect that the patients take the final action in medical assistance in death. Many religions oppose it, like Catholicism, Christianity, because it goes against God's plans. And to go back, eugenics was really popular in the 1910s and 20s, but it kind of died out after the Nazis, when they, killed everybody they found was undesirable and not a part of the perfect race. So, to fast forward a bit more, Jack Kevorkian, Dr. Death, he became like the martyr of the whole movement. He helped 100 people get a medical assistance in death, and eventually was caught because he put someone to death who had ALS, who involuntarily consented, and it was in Michigan, and that violated the law. So he got 8 years, but he was viewed as like a hero in this space because he allowed someone to get, an assisted suicide or a medical assistance in death, and he brought the whole conflict to light. To follow up, there's a whole support of this movement. We're talking about abstract concepts and history, but at the end of the day, it's about people. Michael McAuliffe was a normal guy. He had Huntington's disease for about 30 years. His disease was progressing, and he knew he was going to lose everything that made him himself. So, as a Canadian citizen, he chose to get a medical assistance in death. He had this big party where everyone he knew told him how much he mattered to them, and he got to end his life on a high note. He said, I just want to die peacefully before going to the next stage. There was another guy, Eric Carlson. He was from Maine. He had a stage 4 brain tumor. His cancer kept coming back after he had 2 operations. He was an outdoorsman. He knew he was never going to be able to live outside, do what he wanted. So, he went and traveled the world with his family, did all these things, and then he went and got one. And, he said, there's just an absolute peacefulness of it all. All my affairs are in order. Now you can just plan for the positive things. The positive things for him were dying, because he didn't want to be in suffering. And, that's why this is done. Suffering, losing the ability to take care of yourself, loss of independence, performing ADLs, dressing yourself, toileting, walking, bathing. The people are not able to adapt to, the process of dying. Not everyone experiences, suffering because of loss of independence. Suffering is a personal experience. We cannot know other people's sufferings. It can be physical, emotional, spiritual, existential, and anticipatory. So, like, you have anxiety about the future. And, even people who have met all the improvement, people that get approved, they're not. Some of them don't even go through with it because they just want, the option to be able to kill themselves if it gets too much in a, a legal way. The big picture is this is not suicide. It's a mercy killing. Mentally ill people kill themselves. That's suicide. In contrast, medical aid in dying is only available to people who are terminally ill right now. Not everyone is doing this. Since 2018, when they legalized it and it became readily available, only 4,000 people have killed themselves. So that's less than 1% through the medical assistance in death. Now, on the flip side, there is much pushback against this. Physicians, are lifesavers, not takers. Physician-assisted suicide is fundamentally incompatible with physician's role as a healer, and it would be difficult or impossible to control and would pose, serious societal risks. We can't abandon these people, some people are saying, if there's no cure. We got to do experimental things. Other people are saying people are not always in a sound mind, even when being screened for it. And Canada, if you look, Canada is expanding on who can qualify. After 2027, you don't even have to have a terminal illness. You can be mentally ill and have it done. So, is that ethical? That's a question. And the people in hospice and palliative care, they're saying, we need to make a higher emphasis on palliative care. What conditions constitute a life so unbearable that the option of euthanasia can be ethically justified? They also raise the question of how much demand there would be if medical assistance in death had less, if it had greater accessibility, the same as quality palliative care. If there was as much good palliative care, it wouldn't be such, people wouldn't want this. And, a good majority of the hospice workers are saddened by this because they overlap. These people are in hospice and they're getting medical assistance in death. And, these people are dying, and that's upsetting. It's a different pathway, which it challenges and it causes interpersonal unease for these hospice workers. So, in conclusion, now that we know what medical assistance in death is and its history and why it's supported and objected to, we can see it's a very divisive topic. What are your thoughts on this matter? We're all going to die someday, and death is a taboo subject. But in the end, we have to decide how a person goes about dying.